You saw the headline today. Let's talk about it. Putin orders tactical nuclear weapon drills in response to Western threats. I know that title sounds very scary, but when you really break it down and you understand the meaning behind it, you should not be worried at all. First and foremost, let's talk about this announcement. This came from a Kremlin spokesperson who said that this is happening because of threats from the Western side. There's been a lot of quote-unquote threats from the Western side, and while they do name one, there are several that they're kind of pointing at. For those who don't know, France's Macron had announced months ago that they would send troops to Ukraine if they need it. Now, that need kind of changed, and this wording changed to where it was, well, if Russia invades and gets to Kyiv, we're going to go there. That's a red line. We're going to head right in. Well, just a few days ago, it was announced that, you know what? If Ukraine makes some kind of breakthrough on the front lines, and if Ukraine requests it, we're going to go in. Now, that kind of spitballed into a ton of different stuff. First, you had other countries who came forward and said, you know what? While we don't want to send troops, we don't agree with that. We would allow Ukraine to use weapons that we're producing and giving to Ukraine and allow them to use them at Russian targets in Russia, which is a complete 180 from what it used to be. That rule was kind of like one of those, hey, Ukraine, we're going to give you these weapons, but as long as you keep them within the 2014 border or pre-2014 border, which is all the territories that Russia had taken since 2014, as long as you keep it between there and you're striking Russian targets, that's fine. That's fair game. But now you get countries like Latvia and a couple other ones that are sending these weapons to Ukraine, whether they be drones or missiles, long-range missiles. They're now kind of easing up, saying, you know what, yeah, we need to go ahead and help out in a way. And if Ukraine believes that hitting X, Y, and Z target would help them, then let's go ahead and let them. So it was a combination of those things going on and a new report that came out from Asia Times that stated that France had sent 100 of their soldiers, part of the Foreign Legion, into Ukraine, and they're currently fighting on the front lines. It's those things that went together that prompted Russia to say, hey, you know what? We need to send a message to the West that we're not playing games. And so we're going to test using nukes. And of course, every time that Russia says they're using nukes, it's because they're scared. They're scared of something that has happened, and so they want to put the other countries in line, and so they just say, we're going to carry out nuclear weapons tests. And the funny thing is that, you know, when you think of nukes, this is what people don't understand. There's different kinds of nukes. You've got nukes that level cities, you know, you're going back to World War II, or you've got what's called tactical nukes, which is still going to cause a lot of damage, but it's specific for a certain area. And so for those who don't read the report, watch everything that came out, you would think that Russia is now saying they're going to nuke Ukraine or nuke other countries, or at least they're threatening it because they're testing that. And it's not true. Once again, these are tactical nuclear weapons. It is still bad. Don't get me wrong. This is awful. If Russia does use these in Ukraine, other countries already said that they would move forward with other kind of movement, if you kind of catch my drift. All that being said, we did get like very little information about what they're doing and how they're doing it in the actual announcement. It says during the exercise, a set of measures will be carried out to practice the issues of preparation and use of non-strategic nuclear weapons. So it's something that every country kind of does. The United States, we test our nuclear awareness. Every country in Europe that has nukes, even though it's funny because Poland wants nukes. They don't have them right now. Belarus has some nukes, tactical nukes that's all currently on the border with Poland, which is why Poland does want those nukes. And it's just interesting because you know as much as I do is that Putin and Russia, they're not stupid. They know that if they use them, they're going to be in a lot of hot water and it's going to be a lot of problems for them down the line. And so, once again, they're kind of using this as some kind of empty threat in a way. What is interesting, though, is the fact that they're also doing a false flag operation, because when they made their announcement, the Kremlin spokesperson had mentioned that, hey, we've unconfirmed reports that France has at least 100 foreign legion troops in Ukraine fighting. They're using that so that they can say down the line that, we warned you, we put the nukes out there, and because those troops were there, we had to hit them. Which, once again, there is no evidence. France actually came out on X and said that there is no troops in there and that the information is false. And, I don't even know where the Asia Times got that information. They don't really source anything in their article. It just says that it is in there. And I'm not really quite sure what's going on there. Now, Ukraine did say something. They did say that, Russia is trying to do nuclear blackmail over weapons drills, and that, quote unquote, we do not see here anything new except for the information, effort, and statements that nuclear blackmail is a constant practice of Putin's regime. And he's not wrong. Once again, it seems like every X amount of months when Putin and Russia feels the pressure of things going on, they threaten nuclear war. And it's just one of those efforts that they try, and every country kind of calls them on their bluff, because you know as much as I do that, okay, Putin does have nukes, don't get me wrong, but go back to 2022, and Putin didn't realize how everyone embezzled money, how everyone was stealing stuff and the equipment was no good, the tires weren't rotated, things weren't working right. And granted, in the past 2 years, he could have rebuilt those things, but he's starting to run out of resources. He's starting to run out of money because Ukraine has taken down a lot of their oil refineries, which is where they're getting their money from, because they're selling that stuff at a steep discount to China. And the funny thing is that China's in France today trying to talk to Macron and other leaders about peace with Ukraine. And at the same time, they're buying this stuff because, well, it's cheaper and there's no sanctions from China buying that from Russia, though there are other sanctions that are coming in because there's components that China produces and sends to Russia for weapons, but that's a whole nother story. All that being said, it looks like China themselves are trying to come up with peace with France. France doesn't want to get deeper into this unless they have to, and Russia's just trying to find some other way to make these countries kind of be put in line. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is something that none of these articles are talking about, which is something that I think needs to be mentioned, is the fact that it had been rumored that Ukraine is getting F-16s around their Easter. And of course, that was on May 5th. Well, I would say 2 days ago, a Su-34, one of the aircraft were taken down. And then today, another Su-34 was taken down. This aircraft was number 21. And I know Russian bots are going to say, no, that never happened. That's not a thing. But it came from a Russian Telegram channel called Fighter Bomber. And they put a whole thing out there because, according to them, these two pilots were extremely talented and very well trained. They fought in the aircraft number 21, and as they run, it's a big loss because these guys are super experienced and know what they're doing. Now, that made me kind of question something. Usually, when a Russian aircraft gets locked on by Ukrainian, whether it's S-300 or other kind of missile, these pilots usually eject. Okay? These guys did not. They unfortunately died, or fortunately for Ukraine. And so when you think about it, well, why weren't these guys able to get out? Maybe they were in a dogfight and they got locked on by an F-16 rocket, or were taken down by close fire, and that's why both of them didn't survive. So I'm thinking that that is another thing that is maybe not being talked about publicly, but is another pressure that Russia is feeling as they're seeing all these things happen. Ukraine is getting more weapons from the West. Russia did not prepare for that. They moved men into a certain area thinking that they had coverage. Well, if Ukraine has F-16s and other weapons coming in, more 155 millimeter shells, more weapons, well, that puts Russia in a bind. So in the next month, you're going to see Russia pushing very hard because even though Ukraine is getting this stuff, it takes a couple weeks to get to the front lines and get that chain moving, the supply chain, keeping up with the flow. And so Russia's going to try to push as best as they can the next few weeks. And so what's another way to kind of maybe scare the country into, whoa, should we send this? Should we send that? Well, we threaten nuclear war. And that's what brings us back to the main target. Why is Russia saying they're doing this? Well, more than likely, they are going to do these drills. Once again, every single country does these drills. They're not massive city leveling nukes. They're tactical nukes. Similarly, things have been used on the battlefield, which is not awesome, but it's nothing to be scared about right now. And it's something that you should remember, that every country in Europe pretty much has either nukes near them or nukes within their country. And so if something were to happen, Ukraine's back is going to be covered. And I know Putin doesn't want to bring up anything bigger, because if Ukraine has taken down most of the Russian military, imagine if the actual EU or NATO gets involved fully. Russia will not be able to recover. And I think maybe that's what China is seeing right now. And that's why China, for the first time in an extremely long time, is currently in France to talk to Macron. Because if you remember, Macron was one of the last real leaders that Putin was talking to. And one thing to keep in mind is the fact that Putin's swearing-in ceremony is coming soon, and while places like Germany and the UK say we're not sending anyone, and Ukraine says, you probably shouldn't even recognize him being president since, it's a fake vote. But France, they're sending people. So I think that China came over to France to do some kind of talks, and then from there are now going to go over to Russia and have a conversation. Say, hey, this is what's going on. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? So, all that being said, I know that was a lot of information. There's only so much information I could put in one TikTok. I know you can do 10 minutes on there, but some of this stuff needs a lot of deep dives in order to understand where we're at and how we're there. And so here on YouTube, I do that for you. Plus, we put a lot of war footage up because a lot of people can't find it for some reason, even though it's out there. You just can't put it on TikTok because TikTok will try to block it and ban it. So YouTube is the only other platform we have right now, and I appreciate it making yourself aware that we're having this channel to build up this channel. So if anything does happen to TikTok, you have somewhere you can get your news. That being said, we are trying to monetize this channel, so we need, I think, like 3,000 watched hours. So if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it, and I greatly appreciate you, and I want to thank you for joining me. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. And one more thing, we have just gotten, you guys had asked me for quite some time to bring back another Ukrainian pin, and the other one had sold out so quickly that I was unable to keep them in stock. Those ones were my regular Ukrainian ones with like a shield. Well, now I have a new one. These literally came in just yesterday, and this is what they are. So if you want one of these, let me know in the comment section. I'm going to see how we can get these onto the YouTube shop. I do have them on TikTok shop, but for some reason not really pushing through. So if you want one of those, let me know, and I'll go ahead and put together this on probably, I don't know how the shopping works here on YouTube. If not, I could put these on Etsy. We'll figure it out, because I know like on TikTok, they can't do international shipping, which is quite annoying. So I want to make sure I can get it on a platform where it can ship around the world. So it might be Etsy for that part. Anyway, once again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your support, and have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye.